Okay, so you'll see here we have this Ocean toolbar. And I've got two things here that are important. You've got this email consent and you've got virtual care consent. And the virtual care consent we just added very quickly a couple of weeks ago on that March 16th weekend. So essentially right now, so it's very easy in a given patient to see, does the patient have email consent or does the patient have virtual care consent? And I'm deliberately starting on a patient who has neither, just to explain to you how we would do it. So if I wanted to get virtual consent for email, I would click on this. It puts this toolbar in here. I then say email patient, and they're going to say there's no email on file because, again, this is a patient that I don't yet have email consent from. Am I sure I want to send it? And I say yes. And I'll put that in. It'll start up the system, and then it will give me the ability to manually enter the email address. So, for example, if I was speaking to a patient on the phone and I was saying to them, look, I want to get your email consent so I can send you a lab requisition and things like that, I'll just send them this. I'm going to send it to myself, and it will go and it will send them the email consent. Okay, and then it automatically goes and it will go through this system. It'll show up on the patient's email. The patient then actually has to go through the email consent. And I'm going to show you what it looks like if I went into a patient who already had this done. Okay, and there is a 2-point authentication. So when the patient has to, oops, it doesn't like my test patient. Hang on a second. So when the patient goes into it, they have to put their birthday in to confirm. And then once it's done, what it will actually do, it will say email consent granted. It automatically adds in the email address into the demographic, so I don't have to do that manually. And then moving forward, I can see that this patient has given email consent, and I don't have to go searching through the chart to see if there's a piece of paper that shows that. The other thing I want to show you on this one here is that this is a patient who's also done the COVID screening. Okay, so I've sent the COVID screening to this patient before coming in for an appointment, exactly the same way as I sent the email consent. And you can see it goes through everything here for me automatically without me having to speak to the patient about this, so that I can see clearly before the patient walks in the door what I'm walking into. So it gives me all of the details, clearly tells me in red that this is a screen positive patient, so I need to make sure that I've got my appropriate PPE on. Now, you can see with this patient that they've provided email consent, but not yet virtual care consent. So if I wanted to get virtual care consent, I would go through the same process. So I literally click on Ocean. I'll then go down here, do the email patient, click on the virtual consent template. It will send that out again. And I'm going to show you what that looks like if I were to have that done already. Because again, it makes it very helpful to know in the chart that I've already got consent for that. So you can see here, once it's done, the email consent is granted and the virtual consent is granted. So I know that I can go ahead and do a Zoom visit. And I told you I'd show you the stamp that we use, and I will do that now. So if I wanted to put in a stamp here for a virtual visit, this is our virtual visit stamp. You can go through and you can see that you can clearly indicate if it's a phone visit, an OTN visit, or a Zoom video conference. And if we were doing virtual consent, we can say we've already got consent through Ocean. If not, and we didn't have email consent to be able to send the virtual visit consent, then we could just read the patient this language, which was taken directly out of the Ontario MD recommended language. It then gives us details about the billing, so people know what they need to do in terms of billing for either the billing codes for phone or Zoom or for OTN, and it's all in that virtual visit stamp.